Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Metaphysical podcast. If you listened to the part one of this investigation into mystery spot phenomena, you heard us talking about the mysterious Marfalites, the covered up exploration of the Grand Canyon, and we started to talk about the East Bay mystery walls. We'll tell you the fascinating information we have about that, but we'll also have so much more for you on the paranormal side of mystery spots. Also, did you want to hear about Peles Curse and the black sand beaches of Hawaii, the haunted happenings in Belcourt Castle in Newport, Rhode Island, gravity anomalies, and impossible vortexes? Well, join remote viewer John Vivanco, me investigative researcher Rob Counts, for a show that's out of this world.
Are you listening to the Metaphysical podcast or watching us on a video platform? If so, please leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us reach even more people. Very important here. Make sure you also like and subscribe wherever you are.
And hit that notification bell, people.
Hit it.
Well, hey, we did start talking about those East Bay mystery walls in the last
Yeah,
episode.
that's right. We did.
Yeah, but we'll get back to that. So hang on. Because we will be getting more into that. Actually, some pretty fascinating stuff. But I kind of wanted to start this episode out just going over these black sand beaches in Hawaii. And John, have you ever been to Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. Many times. I love Hawaii.
What's your favorite island?
Hawaii is like the West Coast vacation spot.
True.
And the Bahamas are like the East Coast vacation spot, right? And Hawaii is just... It's got a calm energy to it, very calm energy to it.
Yeah, it feels great there. I've been there maybe about four times now. What's your favorite island, out of curiosity?
I like Maui.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, I actually found this resort on Maui. It's no longer open, but it was this resort that was in the jungle, like near the Hana area, where it's very jungly. And it was just this huge area, and they're just like dotted with these little they look like little Thai temples that you stayed in, but it's no longer there, unfortunately. It was like the most epic place you could ever stay.
Too bad.
And I would go there. That's where I would go every time.
That's awesome. Yeah. I really like Maui. I think my favorite place, though, just for natural beauty and exploring, is Kauai.
Kauai, yeah.
And I mean, man, I went to a green beach in Kauai, green sanded beach, and it was beautiful. Like you actually had to trail to get to it. You had to go, basically you park, you go into the woods, and then all of a sudden you come out, there's this huge cliff and just a beautiful beach that not a lot of people know about, you know?
Yeah, you find these crazy, cool, epic spots.
Yeah, and what's so crazy too is like, when you think of like beaches, you're thinking of like, like the West Coast beaches, the beautiful East Coast beaches of Florida and stuff like that. What's so interesting about Hawaii is the way that the mountains or the cliffs interact with the water is something that just doesn't really exist almost anywhere else. Like it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So beautiful. But yeah, these black sand beaches are really interesting. My understanding just from the normal scientific perspective is we're talking about lava interacting with water and creating the sand essentially, right? But according to legend, the goddess Pele was said to have visited, I think it's called Kahena Black Sand Beach, and she left behind a gift of black sand as a symbol of her power.
Right. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And some also believe Pele lives in the Kilauea volcano. I hope I pronounced that right. I apologize if I didn't to those Hawaiians out there listening to us. Now, this erupted in 1983, this volcano, and it's reportedly the most active volcano in Hawaii, and is known actually as the modern era, and is like basically one of the most active volcanoes in the world in the modern era. So between 1983 and 2018, Hawaii actually continued to grow because this volcano kept adding to new land in the Big Island almost continuously. So over the last 100 years, Kilauea has been erupting almost half of the time.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right. That is crazy. I mean, is it is it a black sand curse, or what is it?
Well, yeah. So there's this thing called Pele's Curse, and so this volcano goddess of Hawaii's Big Island, Pele, who's reportedly, you don't want to mess with her, is what the locals will say there. So she brings bad luck to those who take the lava.
Huh.
So hundreds of people end up returning rocks every year after experiencing ill fortune from taking the lava.
Well, I mean, I know of Heather's curse. Heather and I were at a river where there was a lot of black sand.
Yeah.
And Heather ran down there and dragged me down there and wanted to collect as much black sand as possible. And so I just filled up all my pockets with black sand. And to this day, I still have black sand in those pockets. And that's Heather's curse.
That sounds like an awful thing to carry with you.
No, it was awesome because we brought it home and just played with it with neodymium magnets for a while. But there's something about black sand. So here's the thing with Heather. She has this super fine-tuned intuitive sense about things, and she will go down these pathways of intuition in order to do something that leads to something bigger, something greater. And so she also has dreams about black sand as being something very, very, very important. So that was like the background of her wanting to collect black sand. I don't know exactly what it is, but there is something about black sand, and she knows it. It's like in her subconscious.
Interesting. So,
she says that it's for receding planets after destruction. That's what she's seen in her dreams.
Because that's what volcanoes do, really. Is
right.
They basically reseed the whole planet, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
And so a local ranger in the Hawaii area says that occasionally he sees postage showing they paid $100 to mail things back because they just want to get rid of the ill fortune from taking it. Some locals, of course, they think this curse isn't real, but some just won't take any chances either. So Alana, quote, Alana Hong Eagle, born and raised in Honolulu, was horrified when she found her roommate had brought a plastic bag full of Pele's hair. Now, this is an effect. It's strands of lava that look like golden locks from the Big Island to their house in Oahu. Isn't that fascinating? That's from lava, dude. That looks like blonde, beautiful hair.
Wow.
That you can tell that there's something going on with those mountains that are not. That's pretty spectacular. There's something living there in this hair. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's just like very interesting. So obviously, for those of you at home, do not recommend you taking the black sand. You don't know what's going on there. John, did I ever tell you the experience that I had in Hawaii with accidentally creating an earthquake?
What? No. I haven't heard that one.
Maybe now's a good time to tell you about this.
You accidentally created an earthquake.
I mean, I don't know. This is my take home from the whole situation, though, because I think regardless of what happens, you should always look inside and just, even when things are going to happen, no matter what, but they're timed with something that you did. I believe those things happen for a reason, and you have to look at yourself and make changes, improvements, whatever they are, right? So I'm in Hawaii, and I'm near the water, and there's this sacred site that the Hawaiians have. You're not supposed to go into the sacred site. I was told not to go into the sacred site.
But you did it anyway.
I was too curious, man. I was really curious. And honestly, my intentions were very innocent. I had felt very moved by Hawaiian culture. I couldn't even, I had a really strange experience when I was flying to Hawaii for my first or second time, where because you're on Hawaiian Airlines, you're watching the Hawaiian dancing, the men and the women. And there's something so deep and beautiful about it that I was in tears on my way to Hawaii. Like I felt like I remember. And then I had a very strange experience when I was in the Honolulu Oahu airport. I walked into a room in Oahu, and I had been in the room before, and I was looking in the room, and I was like, this is weird. Like, I actually felt like my last life or something was in Hawaii. And it was this really weird, like just really bizarre sense. Like I have not felt a sense that strongly that I did in Hawaii while I was there, right? And so I'm near the water. There's this site over there, and I really was, my intentions were somewhat pure. So I kind of like tried to just ask if it was okay to go into this site, you know, just to be respectful. I go into the site just to look at what was there, right? And I come out and I start walking away from the site and I look over. Now, you know, if you're near the water in Hawaii, a lot of times, like I said, there's these cliffs, right? All of a sudden, I see massive boulders. Like I hear a rumble like you wouldn't believe, like the earth was moving. I look over and there are massive rocks, like bigger, I mean, just the size of cars or bigger, falling from this cliff and rolling down this like crazy cliff, splashing into the water. And all of a sudden, like I realize I'm experiencing an earthquake.
You angered Pele.
I don't know, man. But afterwards, I looked inside pretty hard about it and I was like, okay, my bad. It was a 5.8
wow
on the Richter scale or something, or 5.5. And Hawaii hadn't even experienced an earthquake that large in a while, but they experience them every day in that area. But maybe it was like, it was enough where it was like significant, right? 5-10 minutes later, there are like military helicopters like flying over the area. I didn't even know what was going on. I was like, what the heck, man? It was just
looking for the guy that angered Pele.
I don't know. Yeah. I was like running for my life at that point.
Yeah. You didn't bring any rocks home with you, did you?
No, man. No. I'd heard all about that. And I was like, after that experience, I was like, I'm just going to be respectful. I don't know. And not knowing is enough. you know, like, you know, I'm not afraid. I'm not like afraid of Pele or whatever it is. Like that's not
Pele.
Yeah. It's not that. It's just more like I just think there has to be a certain amount of respect with these things.
There does. There absolutely does. Yeah. There's an energy. There are paraphysical beings. I mean, I've run into this stuff with remote viewing before where it's like sacred places and even things that are in the earth. Like sometimes, okay, so with treasures, for instance, we're going off on a sidetrack here.
Let's do it.
With treasures, buried treasure, lost treasure, something that someone's stolen, that's like a blood money sort of thing. There are ghosts that hang around it. But okay, when you get to mines, lost mines, you often have like nature spirits, like more powerful nature spirits who hang around these things, who do not want humans to be taking stuff out. And those things can mess with you even more than the ghosts associated with just regular treasures, like stuff people stole. So you have to be really careful.
It's interesting, you know, the Hawaiian culture, it's so beautiful and it's so unique. Even the language is so relaxing to listen to. It's like something out of time. I don't know how to explain it, but there is something very special about it.
And on the plus side, I don't think there's any dogmen there.
Really?
I don't think so. And I think that's a plus.
But there's Bigfoot there, reportedly, aren't there?
I don't know. Actually, this is a whole like area field to look into. Like what's on the islands as far as cryptids go.
Gosh, I hope there are no dogmen there. Those things are creepy. All right. Well, next on the list here is from basically my hometown. And now they're, you know, across the pond from the Bridgewater Triangle is basically where I grew up. You know, the Warwick area. And if you go down that bay a little bit, you get to Newport, Rhode Island. You go south on that bay, Newport, Rhode Island, Jamestown is down there. There's a lot of strange phenomena reported in Newport. Newport is a very, very old place in this country. One of the older places that most of the elites have mansions in. One of these mansions is called the Belcourt Castle, and it is said to be one of the most haunted mansions in all of Rhode Island.
Really? Like what kind of stuff happens there?
Hey, moving objects, disembodied voices, spirit sightings. There's 60 rooms, 50,000 square feet, interior finishes completed by 300 artisans shipped in from around the world. Okay, now, Here's where it gets a little bit creepier. It was owned originally by a guy named Oliver Belmont, who married a widowed Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt has a mansion over there called it's called the Breakers. It's the Vanderbilt Mansion. Now, the most haunted object of note in this area, in this place, that you can go visit, you guys, for yourself. It's kind of why we're bringing this up. If you ever go to Newport, Rhode Island, there's 2 Gothic chairs in the grand ballroom. Reportedly, just give people a chill. They throw people across the room, allegedly, and the chairs are now roped off so no one can sit in them and get affected by the chairs. And that isn't even the weirdest thing. That is super strange, but I thought this was even weirder. There's a suit of armor that moans, screams, and moves. There it is, right there. And I don't really get a great feeling from that. That just looks creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, even stained glass just gives me a creepy feeling in general. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's all those.
I'm not into the ghost thing. Ghost thing is just
when people are like, "Oh, let's go sleep overnight in this like haunted whatever," I'm like, why would I want any of that crap attaching to me? Like, I'm not opening myself up to that.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I mean, ghosts are just, for the most part, they're deceased people, and that's not that exciting to me.
It's not that exciting. You asked me to go hunt Dogman, I'm into it, man.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not opening myself up to the haunting stuff. Yeah, so this is also interesting that there's a monk that's often seen around Belcourt Mansion. So after the original owners, they ended up buying a German wood sculpture of a monk, and the spirit of this monk, they see it. So the statue somehow is connected to this spirit that is now prancing around the mansion. So in case you guys are wondering, now this mansion is owned by the founder of the company Alex and Annie. So this is a popular bracelets and lifestyle brand. Newport is very weird. There are sightings of all kinds of things in Newport, Rhode Island. There have been, I think in the 1910s, 1920s, lots of people doing seances in the area. That whole, I didn't even know this, but the whole Rhode Island, Massachusetts, up into Boston area, the spiritualists in the 1920s and the amount of seances that were in this area were astronomical.
Really?
Yeah. It was
their base, huh?
It was like the East Coast. It was like the hub of the United States for all of this stuff.
Right.
And I think potentially that could be because there was so much stuff also going on in Britain.
Right.
With spiritualist movement, excuse me.
Right.
Yeah, fascinating topic that we could cover at some point. Hopefully we'll get into that because, you start getting into Harry Houdini again. We brought him up in the past, and also Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yeah, and Blavatsky. Yeah, very interesting. Well, I think it's probably time that we get into these East Bay mystery walls again.
I'm really those East Bay walls, right?
Yeah, what are these things, man? They're very weird. They're spanning like miles and miles. That would be so difficult to make these.
Right.
What the heck is behind these things?
Well, so when we remote viewed this stuff, I was like, I would go like hike. One day I hiked, I don't know, it was probably around 15 miles.
Wow.
Like just following these walls and trying to find anything interesting about them other than just them being stacked rocks. Just following them, and out there, sometimes there's cattle out there, it's grazing land and stuff. And our data on it was that these walls were built to move a type of telluric energy. So it had to do with ley lines and moving energy through rocks that have a piezoelectric charge to certain locations where that energy would be used. So we're talking about
this is advanced stuff, man.
This is advanced stuff, but it's like something, again, it's like those monuments that you find in Great Britain, where
Like Stonehenge or something?
not so well, like Stonehenge, where they remembered a way to build these things to create energy, right? From a previous technological like
Age.
civilization or something. So it is a little bit like that, and I think in part some of these things were built on top of older stuff in the East Bay, in general, in the East Bay walls. But literally, okay, so they were to move telluric energy because there were energetic fields, like ley lines in that area that they were following. So when I was going through that area, hiking through that area, I had found this very, very large rock, and this rock was carved. It was really old. It was absolutely carved. There were like these right angle cuts in it. Almost looked like part of it was machine cut, but a very, very long time ago. And it was like in these troughs. They were like these troughs that were cut and then angled downward on the edges. And that, so we that was a absolute find, because this is not something normal. In fact, I had a anthropologist or archaeologist look at it and wonder, whoa, what is this?
What is this thing?
Because I took photographs of it. This is really interesting. Where did you find it? Told the archaeologist where it was found and said, oh, no, go talk to the geologist. Basically saying that can't happen. There can't be anything carved out there, because there's no belief that, well, as far back as, you go to the native people, and that was what, 12 to whatever, 12,000 years ago, whatever. No, they weren't doing that kind of stuff. So that stuff can't exist out there, right? But it
Well, and
was.
that's what a normal archaeologist would
Right.
say.
And that was the attitude. Like, no, go
Right.
talk to a geologist, because no, it's just natural then if you found it there. It's a natural thing if you found it there. All right. So, no, we remote viewed it. So we remote viewed it. It was artificially, it was cut. It was cut. And what it was meant to do was that it was meant to sit at a terminal point on one of these stone walls, collecting energy. And when rainwater hit it, it was to charge rainwater, as like the ones that were cut on the edge were to drain into some kind of trough, and it was to charge rainwater. So it sat at the end of one of these rock wall lines that went for a very long time, and when it rained or they poured water on it, it would charge the water energetically, or they would put seeds on it to charge seeds. And charging seeds is actually one of those things that has always been done at these types of locations. It's like when you get to Europe, they would charge seeds there because the seeds would grow. And there have been studies done by I can't remember the scientist's name. I think he died recently. He wrote a book all about it. I wish I could remember. I think the book's out of print, though. It's very hard to get. He did experiments at some of these sites and found that seeds will grow exponentially larger and faster than a control group outside of these, after they've been charged in these areas. So
This is
that's
like
predominantly
orgone kind of energy, right? I
yeah,
mean,
it's like an orgone type of energy, chi type of energy
I
to
call it
capture
Cheether.
Cheether, right? You can call it Cheether. So it was meant to just draw that, and so these rock walls were like literally built from Morro Bay, that's like Central California, all the way up to Northern California near the Oregon border. You even find them around Mount Shasta,
Hmm.
and they serve no known purpose, because some like spiral up hills, and that's okay. So hills usually have, especially old volcanoes, they have a lot of energy in them, and so that was one of the things they did. They would wrap them around in order to collect the energy, this sort of ether type energy, cheether, to utilize it. And some of these, like, you go investigate the East Bay walls, you'll find drill, like, perfectly round drill holes through some of them, through a massive boulder, perfectly round all the way through. And that was like when we looked, why was that? What's that for? And they would stick like a like a wooden post through it, and one person on each side, and they would collect energy in themselves. They would hold on to it and collect energy into themselves. So there was like this whole, it would actually like launch them out of their body. There was this whole thing about launching them out of their body. I have no idea how that works, to be honest. This is what the data says. Sometimes data just says things and you have no idea, like how did it go there?
But it just sounds like a very ancient civilization based on like their even the value, how they value technology and how they use technology seem to be through growing
right,
things. And
right.
it's just a very different, based on a very different mindset than our current technology.
Well, it was utilizing the earth energies, understanding how they ran, which directions they ran in, and then building on top of that in order to utilize those energies, just like a pyramid would do. I mean, that area, that whole area, there had been a lot of finds of giants, like with double dentition, right? 2 rows of teeth. In fact, Catalina Island, just off of like southern central California coast,
2 rows of teeth.
yeah, double dentition, right? There was like a giant burial graveyard there, giant burial graveyard on Catalina Island, from what I understand. And there had been many giants that were found along the California coast with that double dentition, 2 rows of teeth. So not somewhat near there, like near the East Bay, more up in the Northern California zone. There's this area that I had been investigating where there are these standing stones, but they're embedded into the ground and they're in a line. And that's another mystery. It's like another spot where he just native peoples didn't actually put that there, because the native peoples have said these were here before us. I think they've even said that about the mystery walls. They're here before us, different culture. And so these standing stones, I had been investigating that site, and what I found was that when I investigated it further, there were these terraces that were like built out in a round circular fashion on a downward slope, and then they were lined with these big rocks to create these ceremonial areas. And then I also had found rocks with solstice markers drilled into the top of them, along with lines cut on the face of the rock so that you can line up the sun with when the solstice happens. So not only that, there are these rubble piles, and in these rubble piles are they look like they're very old carved like deities. I swear, like you can go in, like so old, so weathered, so carved, just thrown into these rubble piles. And this area, when we remote viewed it, you find, okay, so first you find these mounds that are lined with rocks around them, very old. So when we had remote viewed this area, we had seen that there was involvement in creating this from a species who were much larger than humans. So they had used this area. And so what I think is the East Bay walls and a lot of these really mysterious sites along the California coast that I've found, and these carvings, have to do more with this like transitional culture of more giants, and those beings building these things and utilizing these things, because the native peoples, they didn't do this. Those were there before they got there, so they say.
Well, and what an undertaking this would be for
A big undertaking.
yeah, for I guess you could say a commonly normal sized human being.
Right.
This creating these walls, it's unthinkable, really. I mean,
Right.
how long would that take? How much of the manpower it would take?
Exactly.
If we're talking about much larger humans doing that,
Right.
it's not as big of a feat. I mean, they're much, these rocks could be carried much easier and moved much easier.
Yeah. So I think this was the transitional culture from when we had a cataclysm. So about 12,000 years ago, there appears to be a huge cataclysm that happened pretty much earthwide, which
That's
happens every
the
12,000
deluge,
years, basically. What's
the
that?
flood. Are we talking about the flood here, or
We're talking
something
about
else?
the flood. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was probably something to do with some type of solar flash micronova type situation. Probably something to do with that. And I think this is something that probably happens around every 12,000 years through this sort of galactic sheet thing that
So
goes
what you're
across.
saying is we're due for another one.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know for sure. We've seen a lot. So we've seen a lot of that kind of weird stuff in our data when we look at the past. We see a lot of these sites like Gobekli Tepe and
Yeah.
many others where they went underground. They knew something was coming, so they built underground to escape this thing that was coming 12,000-ish years ago.
Right.
Right. And when you get to current remote viewing on current times in our slight future, it seems like there is something like that that happens on a regular basis. And we could be, maybe not. I don't know. But I do think that it's related to some type of burst from the sun caused by something moving through the universe, possibly the galactic sheet. I know some people are talking about this, and some evidence through stars in our planet or in our sort of closer system appear to have been going through micronovas, and it's like getting closer to our neck of the woods. So it's kind of an interesting thing, and I think that our planet goes through these changes like that, where civilizations rise up and fall because of these natural cataclysms that happen. Yeah.
Which, makes total sense.
Right. And so I think that transitional culture, when you get to the giants, it's like, we find when we were remote viewing the giants that were found in Mount Shasta by J.C. Brown, early 1900s. We actually did an episode on that.
Yeah, we did.
Those giants, all our data was like those giants were trying to escape a cataclysm, trying to get out. But I think they were the ones that did this stuff.
Yeah. So I think so. Yeah, these walls, are they small? Are they large?
Oh, some of them, would go up to like my neck.
So yeah,
you're talking about these things being very old as well. Very, very old stacked rocks that have fallen off. So when you go and explore them, there's a lot of rocks that have fallen off.
These are heavy rocks.
They're very heavy rocks.
Yeah.
And so this is not, these were not for defense. These were not for keeping animals in. Of course, they were repurposed later on by farmers. They were not built for that. It doesn't matter how many rocks you have or how high it is. It only matters the movement of energy through them. So it doesn't matter how big they are because they were geared to move energy, right? And that's what they did. In fact, you could probably, this is something to actually test, stick maybe like a DC voltmeter or something with prods in between those rocks to see if they're carrying
what happens
right now. Yeah. Right. But so no, they were not like geared for anything to keep anything out. They were literally to move energy through a piezoelectric channel.
Very interesting. Well, and we've got more going on in Oregon that we'll get into soon, and we'll kind of spark the conversation by talking about Spook Hill in Florida. Have you heard of it?
Spook Hill? No, I haven't heard of that.
Called Spook Hill. That's what they call it. So it's called a gravity hill.
Oh, the gravity hills.
Yeah, it presents visitors.
But they even have seriously? They seriously have that?
But this is what makes scientists not look into this stuff and make fun of it. Is that human beings, of course, are going to use it as a tourist trap, I guess you could say, because it helps the economy in the area, right?
So that's definitely going uphill. Look at that.
Right. So, here it is. So Gravity Hill presents visitors with the feeling of rolling uphill when they're going downhill, defying the laws of gravity. So some people say that it was created by an alligator's ghost or a chief. Of course, that's pretty funny. One legend explains that a Florida pirate, Captain Sarsaparilla, because why wouldn't you name yourself
Captain Sarsaparilla? This is like little kids' stories.
That pirate got made fun of more than any other pirate in the history of pirates for naming himself Sarsaparilla. How could you even take him seriously?
It's not right.
Sarsaparilla.
I think, you know what? I personally think it's the alligator pushing cars, the ghost of an alligator pushing cars.
Right. So, okay. So, Captain Sarsaparilla, back to him. So this legend explains that a Florida pirate, Captain Sarsaparilla, is buried at the hill and pushes cars away. Another legend claims that the spirit of a giant alligator inhabits the area. Okay, now cars roll uphill here.
But they still roll uphill. So no matter the silly names around it, like in the silly
The
ideas,
cars are rolling uphill, right?
Right.
And so horses actually labor when going downhill.
Huh.
That's strange. Now,
so that is interesting because like when you get to the so-called fringe science around the gravity or the mystery spots, they also have this thing where it's 20% harder or something to push something towards the center of the spot than it is to pull it away. Huh.
well, and also, I mean, when you start getting into the gravitational, you can't not talk about time because time gets affected as well.
Right.
And I mean, this all goes back to Einstein's theory of general relativity, which has everything to do with gravitational pull and time. So there are some scientists that have actually tracked the time being altered through the
Right.
different like the anomaly from the mass and the matter actually coming into this dimension.
Right.
Quote unquote. Right. So yeah, very strange. Very strange. Now, I have not obviously been to Spook Hill, but that like seems like a place if I'm ever on the East Coast, I'm gonna have to hit because I want to see my car roll up.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and try to figure out whether or not it is really rolling up a hill or if it's just like some strange.
And then bring a level with you, bring a compass with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's the sign from Spook Hill. It's pretty funny actually. So here's the legend. It says ages ago, an Indian town on Lake Wales Lake, really, was plagued with raids by a huge gator. Okay. So the town's great warrior chief and the gator were killed in a final battle that created the huge swampy depression nearby. The chief was buried on its north side. Later, pioneer haulers coming from the old army trail atop the ridge above found their horses laboring here at the foot of the ridge and called it Spook Hill. Is it the gator seeking revenge or the chief protecting his land? Stop the car on the white line, place in neutral, and let it roll back. Weird, and it'll go uphill.
That's pretty cool. It's like it's just a whole event. I would definitely go there if I was close by.
I know, right? Just check it out. You could explore it. You could do your own research. I never listen to anyone doing their own research. Anyway,
right? I know.
Very strange, and that doesn't really stop here, right? Because there's a lot of gravitational anomalies in the U.S. and the next one that we really should talk about is one of the most known gravitational anomalies, which is the Oregon vortex.
But this leads us into the mystery spots, right?
I mean,
this is like
totally
where this goes.
It does, and it's similar things, right? Like so the Oregon vortex, back to Oregon again. Lots of weird stuff happening over there. So this basically it's very similar to the mystery spot in a way because like both the mystery spot in Santa Cruz, California, and the Oregon vortex, they built these wonky houses in the area where the energy was the strongest. That like the house looks like it's moving in a different direction, and it's basically just to kind of create more of an
problem with those sites though is that they do turn it into a circus sideshow sort of thing where it's like they just want to create that intense optical illusion instead of dealing scientifically with actually what's there, which bugs me.
It bugs me too, but you can see like, okay, so this could just be human beings trying to make money off of it. Understood, right? The other part of it though is the weirder you make this house and you do this, like the less people like are going to take it seriously.
Right.
And if there is a scientific anomaly here, which I believe there is, you're going to have people less likely. It's more of this like urban legend thing than it is something to take seriously, right?
Right.
So this House of Mystery thing was built in 1904. And this House of Mystery, this is different. This house in the background, This house was built in 1904, and it actually slid off of its foundation on an angle, I believe, because of the phenomena. And it's been that way ever since. In 1930, it was dubbed the House of Mystery, right? So people can walk to different spots and seem to grow or shrink in height. That's a really bizarre effect.
Right.
Measuring instruments always, yeah, go ahead.
Well, so the other thing that happens with these spots too is that the trees like twist as they grow when they normally just grow straight. That's like not a normal thing for trees to twist as they grow, and they either go away from or towards what's considered the center point of it. And I think the center point of these places is where you have the difference in height, the difference in size, because that's around the center of the so-called vortex, right?
Sure.
Right. So it's actually really interesting because I mean I've been in the woods in various locations, nothing around, no like houses or anything, just forested areas. And I found areas where you do have the twisted trees, like a grouping of twisted trees that are spiraling up in just weird little areas. And there is a different kind of energy in those areas. So I think this is something that happens. This is something that happens in general.
It's like the earth communicating with you. It's
well,
weird.
what is it? Like, what is it? What's going on here? Like gravitational anomalies is what they call it, right? You can look at gravitational anomaly maps, but they don't really, I don't know, they don't really explain anything as far as these sites go. Because I was looking at gravitational anomaly maps. I didn't find anything that would point to anything like that, anomalies happening in these sites, albeit, these aren't like local up close maps because I don't think they give you those kinds of things. I don't think they're available online. But in all of these that we've remote viewed on the mystery spots, the locations where people have set up, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's Oregon, Santa Cruz, whatever, we get the same thing. We get the same thing, namely that there is something underground that's causing this. There is literally something underground always where there's this thing that is like hollow, and it's a dense material shell that is like pyramidal in shape, in structure.
Back to the pyramids.
But it's underground,
right?
Like, this is, no, I'm just reporting on the data. That's it. So these things are underground in those locations, and it's like the tip point of that pyramid-like object that is hollow, like there's no debris, there's no rocks in it, is shooting energy upward. And so that's like this spiral, creating this vortex, and that's causing the trees to move in that direction. It's causing the distortions in people's perceptual fields, not only like literal distortions in reality, but your perception gets distorted as well. Like it works across the board on just distorting everything. So these things that are under the ground, this is literally like we just started looking into these things. So I don't have a whole ton of data on this right now,
right?
But this is something that's going to be ongoing because I want to go to these sites to understand them deeper, because there's something actually very strange happening. So it makes me wonder too, the vortex type sites that I've found outside of, these types of places. I wonder if it's the same thing. I've never tasked on it, never remote viewed it before. But this thing underground almost seems like it was energetically created. Like we're talking about possibly some type of energy that created this thing underground that's causing it, as opposed to somebody put something underground, right? And the energy that created it seems to be something that humans didn't do, but
really,
yeah, but some other life form perhaps. And
this is very strange. Like the photos we're looking at here are not. Now I get that the house is built differently,
yeah,
right? But like, look at that woman standing on, like, scroll up, that woman standing on that ramp. Now she's leaning in with barely any effort.
Right.
And then everyone else is on a normal level ground. Obviously, even if the house is tilted, her not like completely toppling over onto this guy. She's an old woman. Her core is not that strong. So that is a strange photo of what's going on there.
Well, if you there's this one YouTube video from the Die Hold Foundation. You sent it to me.
Yes.
Right.
So this is, I believe his name is it Douglas Vaught was the gentleman that did
Can't
the
remember his
experiments?
name. I can't remember
It
it, but
says
I thought it
filmed
was interesting.
July 2018, copyright Douglas Vaught, and I don't know if his name, I can't remember his name, but very interesting video. Maybe Lindsay can pull that up for us.
Well, there's one part in the video where he put two posts up next to each other that were perfectly aligned on the bottom with 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, and literally there was a distortion on one of the posts to cause it to be higher than the other one.
Right.
Now, of course, like, this is a video. This is somebody who did something. You have no idea like what they did do or didn't do as far as like, are they on
Fair.
the up and up?
To be fair, right?
Yeah, to be fair. So I don't know, but I would love to run that kind of an experiment there, where you bring in two poles that are perfectly aligned, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, separate them just as he did to see how much of it, because really that's what it comes down to. It's not about the buildings. And I think he even said in the video, he should just get rid of the buildings because there's a true anomaly here.
Yeah, he okay, so this is the biggest part about this video that really struck me is Douglas went out of his way to research both the Oregon vortex and the mystery spot in Santa Cruz, California. These are the two anomalies that we're talking about here. And his biggest annoyance in the situation was that there are plenty of scientists from Stanford University and Berkeley that just refuse to go there and research this. And he's like, stop paying attention to the house. Stop looking at the house that they built that's on an angle and makes it look ridiculous. There's an actual strange phenomena going on here that's worth talking about. And the only reason they're not looking into it is because it wasn't paid and bought for by any of the scientific foundations to get them over there to look into it. He's like, but aren't you curious? Aren't you curious about what's going on here? Isn't that why you became a scientist? He was like, really kind of like, what's going on? Like, can you just look into this? Why am I having to do this? And he did all kinds of experiments with different, different instruments to test what was going on. And his take home was that there is something underground that's causing the anomaly, which is exactly what John just said.
It's just what we got. In fact, I was digging into what he thinks it is, and he thinks it's quite possibly a pyramid type shape as well. And that's what our data has suggested, which is very interesting. You know, I was actually looking at some of the comments under this video too, and he had commented on something that somebody had stated about ancient peoples finding these types of locations to survive cataclysms in, because it changes time, speeds up time perhaps. And he sort of, confirmed that as far as his thinking goes.
Time was one of the weirdest parts about that video. If you watch
that
it
was
video,
weird too. Yeah.
Yeah, because his whole theory revolved around, okay, if gravity is changing, time is also being affected by a certain percentage. And he was able to detect that with his instruments,
right,
and to put the information out there. And I mean, why is this stuff not being paid attention to or looked at? This is so frustrating. Like, couldn't we learn from that? I mean, here it is again. We're back to this conversation that seems to be a thread through most of our shows here, which is like, the pyramids were not just a shape that was put there for no reason. The fact that they exist all over the earth, America, everywhere, the Americas rather. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, what I was thinking when all of this was going down and he was talking about that is that it wasn't natural, that this was something left over from an ancient civilization, sort of like the wall that we were looking at, the Berkeley
Right.
walls that we were looking at, and that it just so happened to get covered over a period of time
Exactly.
by Earth or whatever. It could have been a cataclysm that, you know, the Earth kind of formed over some pyramidal shape that somehow sustained its shape, and now you've got an anomaly there that everybody's having a hard time explaining.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, but this is the first of the investigation here. I'm going to dig deeper into it because,
but John,
you
if
know,
a
these are
pyramid can
Yeah.
change gravity, or gravity,
know.
maybe gravity doesn't even exist the way that we think it does, to be fair, because it is a theory. But if the shapes of things are changing actual physical nature,
I think
like,
it has something to do. I think it has two parts. I think it's the shape and the material of the shape. There's
so
something about the material of the shape
so
that's
what it's
also,
made out of.
yeah, what it's made out
Okay,
of.
so you're saying that
I
it
wouldn't.
potentially there's a
It's not
charge.
like stone or something, right? It's
Mm.
something that's like very hard, very thin, crisp, and lightweight, and
Like
it feels
metallic, a metal of some sort.
metallic. It feels very exotic, very metallic
So
feeling,
this
and
does not sound
lightweight
human
feel.
either, and it
Doesn't
doesn't
sound human.
sound natural either. It
Mm-mm.
sounds like, I mean, I
Well,
don't
I
know
mean, it
what.
has a natural feel to it, like there is a natural component to it, but it's not totally natural at the same time.
But okay, but
Yeah.
a perfect geometric pyramid, if it is that, that's not happening unless there is some intelligent
Well, have you heard
being
of
involved.
the right? No, there's intelligence behind it. It's not natural. It's not naturally there to begin with. It
Right.
could have been somehow energetically created underground or something like that. When you get to Alaska, there's all these stories about the Black Pyramid, the Dark Pyramid underground,
Just
somewhere around
how many
Mount
new
Hayes.
episodes are you going to introduce here, John?
I know.
A
I
black
know.
pyramid? I've never even heard of this thing.
Yeah, the Dark Pyramid. Yeah. Anyway,
Well, man, that fascinating stuff. And these gravitational anomalies exist all over the planet, and
right.
I plan on exploring all of them with you
Yep.
at some point. I mean, we've got to not just talk about this stuff on the show. We're going to try to go out there, you guys, and see a lot of this stuff. John and I are already talking about some trips that we'd like to make along the West Coast and along the East Coast that should give us more data on what some of these things are, and we can look into it. I mean, basically, like no one else can. So,
And they can support us in that too.
Yeah. At a certain point, we're working on a new website. We're working really hard to get out there. If you do want to support our work, how you can support us right now is by subscribing to rise.tv. You can go there and check out rise.tv. There's over 500 videos of all kinds of awesome stuff that you guys would love exploring. John and I are on there too. We're going to be doing some exclusive stuff, and and we plan on getting out there and really researching a lot more of this stuff with you guys. Gosh, love this show. This was a great episode. It was really fun, John.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to actually keep going pretty hard on some of these mystery spots. You'll be seeing these shows sporadically, sprinkled throughout all the different stuff that we're talking about. It's really good to kind of zoom out and talk about some of these things, just because, I mean, there's just so many things out there that people aren't actually talking about enough.
Right.
It's true. It's like they've become these strange tourist traps that, people just kind of like brush off, when maybe there is actually something a little bit deeper if we dig. Well, you guys, hope you enjoyed this episode, and definitely leave a comment below. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you're thinking about, even more importantly, and what it is that you'd like us to research, because we're always looking for new stuff. And it is really in those local stories in all of these different areas that you find all of the great stuff. So hope you guys thought that this episode was as out of this world as we did. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Yep.
All right, you
Awesome
guys.
times.
Until next time.